Namaskar. This is indeed a privilege to be amongst such eminent dignitaries on this platform of the Marports Global Conference. My respects to my esteemed colleague, Chairman JNPA, Shri Gaurav Dayalji, who is spearheading not just the JNPA port as a major port, but also the Vadhva project, which completion by 2030 will be the first deep water major containerized cargo handling terminal port. Shri Pillai sir, my respected colleague in service, and I find him to be a visionary and very committed leader in the Kerala Maritime Board. We need individuals such as him in the state government because we have been cooperating on maritime training, and he is evidently furthering the cause of residents from Kerala, not just in the maritime domain, but also otherwise interests globally. I am indebted to Dr. Jayakumar sir for the privilege to allow me to participate here, and also to Sohan Roy sir. It is leaders such as him who have gone abroad and established credentials. I realized this when we were talking to custom design concerns such as Fincantieri as to what kind of respect individuals hold for Indian expats and how they have contributed to the global pool. Also, my salutations to everyone who's taken time out to be part of this occasion. Having done the introductory, please allow me to rush through this presentation. It is around 80-85 odd slides. Please bear with me if the pace is slightly indulging, but so much is happening in Indian maritime domain. I believe we need to celebrate this. This is the Indian growth story. I always commence with this. If you're looking even at the IMF forecasts, with whatever geopolitical uncertainty we have, which I'll focus on subsequently, India still is the most diverse, largest economy, pushing to be on the third, having a consistent CAGR of 6.5 to 7% annually, and is also perceived as the only stable voice of sanity in today's geopolitical context. We may not be extremely globally competitive, but we are responsibly and integrally globally competitive and inclusive. There is a difference between the two in shipping and maritime terms. Two of our ports are in the top 10, and Vadhva certainly will be a pitch when it's fully operational. We have scaled several pegs in the ease of doing business, and we are furthering that, as I will basically attempt to flag in whatever changes we are to witness. Now, when I talk about the Indian growth story, the Indian maritime domain is around 4.5 to 5% of the GDP. But how critical is it is visible in this slide. 95% by volume of whatever is hitting the Indian coast, EXIM, import and export, is maritime routes, ports. So it is the logistical backbone for the economy and extremely critical for this progressive growth which our economy is pushing forward. This is of course under the able leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister. The concept of Vikasit Bharat is what is propelling the entire multi-sectoral engagement towards this initiative. The Indian maritime story and its growth is defined with a vision. This is the Maritime India Vision 2030. It is a go-to document to tell you about the short to mid-term engagements sectorally within the maritime domain. This is built upon the Amrit Kal 2047 vision, which has 11 independent themes of engagement. There are some eminent legal experts here in the maritime domain, and they would definitely stand testament to what I am attempting to put forth in this slide. In a single year, we have had path-defining changes in the parent governing legislative framework So you've had the entire Merchant Shipping Act 1958 rejigged to 2025. The rules are on the anvil for notification, and we shall be witnessing them closely. The Ports Act has let go of its colonial yoke, allowing that kind of autonomy for the ports. You also have functional acts as in the Coastal Shipping Act. Cabotage, ROFR and Indian coasting is at a disincentivized and a disadvantaged position now. The legislative focus with the Coastal Act is going to allow that fillip to change. As also, we have brought in the Bill of Lading and also the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act, largely to use digital platforms as a single means for the streamlining. Now, having said this, look at today's geopolitical situation. India invested substantially both in the Chabahar port and in the paces of the IMEC. Where is the predictability today with the choke point at essentially the Strait of Hormuz? You witness this similarly with the issues in the Gulf of Aden with the Houthi rebels. At that time, you rerouted everything through the Cape of Good Hope, added on 10 plus days of logistical cost and freight costs, and this simply ended up at the end of the consumer's pockets. I'll continue speaking on this because, as I touched on Chabahar, it was meant to ensure substantial reach strategically for India's energy security considerations. Now, what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is something deeply disappointing. The IMO convened an extraordinary session on this. UNCLOS fundamentally states right of innocent passage and transit passage through territorial waters for ships is a defining paradigm. It is edifical. You can't trade with this. That entire singular edifical premise in global law has been set aside in what we are witnessing now. Certain parts of our country have been very badly affected. If you simply look at the non-resident Keralites in that area in Middle East, the impact in terms of sheer repatriation of external earnings itself is a telling effect. Now, you will see this in the bottoming out of sectors such as real estate, sectors such as consumption. I was the other day discussing with an eminent colleague on the flight here. Even the labor being deployed in a shipyard, not having LPG to cook their own meal, are the unpredictability of a global supply line that has been disrupted, is an eventuality which has been precipitated by today's global uncertainty. The slide here talks about India's energy security. If you look at it, 40% is completely from the area that is now in a unpredictable choke. Our vessels are still there. We had certain Indian flag vessels which were fired upon despite specific communication on the prioritized list and hectic parleys, both in the Directorate General of Shipping, largely led by the Ministry of External Affairs. Sleepless nights to ensure our seafarers come back home safe and sound. Is it too much to ask for someone who is simply doing his job as a key worker? Why I have spent so much of time on this is to make everyone comprehend what difficult international geopolitical realities we have to contend with. And shipping, fundamentally being international, can't do away with this. And this is only a much worse situation than what's witnessed in the MEPC 83 when we were talking about decarbonization. The entire engagement of the IMO with a net ZNZ framework was stepped aside for almost close to a year, and we'll just be probably fence sitters in the MEPC 83 starting 27th of April. Now, this is all about what work we are attempting to do. My eminent colleague Gaurav Dayalji also has spent sleepless nights. There have been containers that have been chock-a-block. Additional space has been provisioned. reefer connected load concessions, ground rent concessions, heckling with the terminals to basically extend these concessions provided by the ports to the exporters, largely precipitated by this logistical choke point. So please understand, whatever we do deliberate on in the maritime domain, we need to make it resilient to these kind of geopolitical shocks. That's the only submission I have. Now these are all the kind of complaints we have received. DGS is handling most of these with a unique ID for exporters, assuring them, because legally you cannot have any hook on the shipping liners passing on a war risk escalation cost to basically an exporter. How do you basically ensure the demurrage or the detention costs are basically the war risk escalated costs? It's a commercial decision. So we need to have something to buffer these kind of times. Bunker costs. 60% to 70% of a voyage is bunkering. We have seen escalation in the bunkering price. The crude prices have gone haywire, and that has a telling effect on basically your Nifty indexes, which has again a long-term effect adversely on whatever capital is being invested. I have spoken about the war risk premium. You've seen escalation of 40 to 50% on simple basic insurance like hull and machinery. P&I has basically seen multiple escalations. The good that has happened, you basically think about Atmanirbhar Bharat. The cabinet has approved close to 13,000 crores for basically a Bharat Maritime Insurance pool. We may not yet be there because Indian tonnage is just 1% and 94% of the global tonnage is with the P&I clubs. But we start small, ensure fixed premiums for basically the coastal segment, our own flag, and then once you have acceptability, just as the Japanese P&I, we will also find a reflective position amongst basically a global acceptance. Now I'll run through the rest of the presentation. Shipbuilding, this is the biggest story happening. If you see, 70% of all the current indents are with these three countries, China, Japan, South Korea. India is wanting to break free. If you look at this, the present status with the MIV was we are the 10th, we need to push to the top 5. Right now you're doing 50,000 GT a year. We need to take it to 4.5 million GT. So we have yards, and this is what the government has essentially done. 4 specific pillars. I spoke about the last pillar first, which was the legislative framework being reworked. Then you have the shipbuilding finance assistance scheme. You have then the Maritime Development Fund, which is in its basis, largely to knock off the extra cost of capital, which is a major hindrance in investing in our sector because it's capital intensive and needs long-term financing. So the MIDF steps in as basically a bouquet which is customized and bespoke financing for maritime. You also have the shipbuilding development scheme. There are certain eminent leaders in the shipbuilding engagement who are present here today. They would really understand the development of greenfield and brownfield clusters, and this is where the government is walking the talk. Our mandate from the highest of the offices is facilitate business, provide them a catalyzing environment, and let them invest and grow. This is the biggest proof of concept. Gone are those days of energy insecurity where you're using a foreign flag to bring your own crude. What if the foreign flag owner simply refuses, even if he's under legal charter, just because of the situation? The minor issue essentially of outgo of around $160 million out as the forex for the freight cost. Look at this. Domestically, the oil PSUs now are aggregating their deep pockets to basically doing conscious demand aggregation for the kind of vessels they need, building them in India. The VLCCs may take some time, but the medium range tankers are happening. PSPs are happening. Now I'll come to transshipment, and rightly said, Birmingham. Birmingham, when it started, was projected to be basically a transshipment hub, and look at how it's done. Phase 1, more than 620 odd vessels visited in the first year itself, including a mother vessel, one of the largest container carriers. It's crossed 1 million TEU as such. Phase 2 as an expansion, both with the road evacuation and also the additional space and berths being made available, will truly make it a rival. close to 20 to 22 million TEU transshipment is handled elsewhere. Colombo basically handles most of the Indian transshipment traffic. We need to rework that. That's where the Viringham success story is very important. Yes, there are issues. We have given out basically for our own coasting and for the cabotage, withdrawal of the General Order 123. But given the present political situation, geopolitical situation, not the political situation, we have extended that by another 6 months, meaning foreign flags can still ply. However, apples to apples, we do have distinct anomalies where an Indian flag operating in Indian territorial waters still has commercial disadvantages compared to a foreign flag operating in Indian waters. And this anomaly is visible further in the sense when you see Indian seafarers. I'll come to that again subsequently. But Viringham is a success story which is very crucial alongside Galathea for the Indian transshipment handling, both with the eastern and the western coast upwards. Now I'll come to coastal shipping. These are largely for bulk, as in iron ore, coal, steel, petroleum products, fertilizers, food grains. You shift from raid roll to basically sea. The modal shift gives you basically cost effectivity. And how are we precipitating that is, if you look at the cargo growth on the inland segment, we are now coming with a coastal cargo promotion scheme, 8 to 10,000 crores spread over 4 to 5 years, which will incentivize cargo on coastal routes, so that you have a shift modally from roads to water. So you have the road, sea, rail connectivity, which is so wonderfully done in the European economies. That's the rationale for the coastal cargo promotion scheme. Everyone knows here about the disasters that we witnessed. Elsa capsized, MSC Elsa. It was a 28-year-old container vessel. Lost basically stability mid-transit and then wasn't able to be recovered. The casualty investigation is still going on. There was no loss of life, but it did have IMDG cargo. Similarly, Vanhai 508 almost became a burning disaster coming right up to the coast of Kerala. So these 6 pillars with coastal states are extremely important, and I am requesting the Kerala Maritime Board to engage very, very professionally with this, because we need manpower to ensure crewing, training, manning, and also casualty responses while you're looking at commercial aspects of shipping. Decarbonization, as I said, this is the green shipping initiatives within the country. I'll come down to the banner under which we are working, the Maritime India at the rate of net zero. This is the National Green Shipping Policy. Mid of May 15th, we will have the National Action Framework. It has a total of 6 pillars here, 7 is also there, 7 pillars here. The 8th pillar is the international cooperation part. I will not repeat, but these include green ships, they include green ports, they include your aspects such as green finance, which largely hasn't been addressed so far, green skill development, capacity building, etc. And of course, alternate fuels for maritime, which shift you from the conventional fuels to the alternate fuels. You'll witness this in the green shoots that you're seeing in the lead ports. And this is Paradeep and Tuticorin. On essentially the east and west, you're having Kandla doing this, and I'm pretty sure Gauravji also would be having paces for greening JNPA's operations too. We talked about energy security and said we are a hydrocarbon dependent nation because we import most of our hydrocarbon need. 30-35 years hence, if we develop the correct fuel lines, India could become a major green bunkering destination. Today we bunker around 2-2.5%. Singapore, just a small island nation, 53% of the entire commercial traffic bunkering. You change the paradigm by not only becoming the fastest and the biggest economy, you also become an energy secure nation by doing green bunkering and exporting energy, which basically sets the entire paradigm upside down. Green ports is a reality, as I mentioned. These are the sustainable indicators we are working on. Green port index, then the port readiness levels, then shore to ship, cold ironing. Of course, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 to be captured with the national emissions baseline that needs to be stabilized. The Green Tug Transition Program is already in its phases under the Harit Sagar guidelines. and just transition. You need to train our manpower for basically this transition. These of course is technology, IVTMS, Integrated Vessel Traffic Management, being integrated with the Maritime single window, allows for just in time for vessel arrivals, quicker, efficient discharges. This is of course something happening as a command control center. The concept of a digital twin which has been furthered. This is a reality now in India. It has happened in Tuticorin, where you see a digital twin of the vessel, a digital twin of the port, and actual just-in-time transition. That's of course the National Port Sustainability Council to talk about and ensure green ports, not just for the major ports. There would be technology demonstrators. All the other privately managed port authorities would then subsequently follow suit. Ship recycling is a major thing. India does around 33 to 35% of the global recycling. What we are doing now is bringing in ISO standards alongside the Hong Kong Convention compliances. We have 115 yards compliant. And the biggest thing happening to give a further fillip to shipbuilding is the ship recycling credit note. You break a ship in India, 40% of the fair scrap value, which is linked to the Baltic Index, is basically available as a ship credit recycling note. This is digitally monetizable, tradable with a premium. And if you're building a new vessel in India, you get 5% cap, 5% of the cost of the new build as a write-off against the ship recycling credit note. It's a global first. We also, unfortunately, are doing many things wrong. For information of everybody, we are the country that discharges the largest amount of plastics in the sea. So we may claim quite a few things. We are not signatories to the London Protocol. We also are the largest discharge of raw sewage. Look at the health of our rivers, water bodies, which is a major concern, and we all need to join together and work on this aspect too. We are the pilot partner in these 3 international engagements: underwater radiated noise, glow litter, and the green voyage with the IMO. And of course, digital transformation, which basically is the need of the hour, leveraging technology for providing better efficiencies in operations. Maritime single window I've spoken about. E-Samudra is the government's mandate to make the Directorate General of Shipping completely virtual. You do not need to visit the Director General of Shipping for any processes. Technically speaking, since I'm human, I'll still interact with you, but professionally speaking, I need to do everything in a timeline of 2 days, timeline of 1 day. That's how it will be. eNavik is the first ever global 24/7 seafarers grievance redressal portal. Any seafarer globally calling, because we have 12% and more in the global pool, and this is a global first. No country has the 24/7 seafarers grievance redressal, where the country is assuring a seafarer that his safety, his comfort, and his safe return back home is basically the country's priority. Same with the crisis management. Maritime training is going several notches up with a training ecosystem. We just come out with an RFP on that. These are the paces of how we will also actively engage with the standards for testing, watchkeeping, and for the certifications, the STCW, and how we basically take Indian maritime as a major training destination. eNavik with the 4 modules, the National Coastal Database Portal, complete digital transformation of the entire sector. I mentioned the ship recycling portal so that it allows a digital interface to whatever we are doing with ship recycling. And on top of this, what happened with incidents such as with long time back with Merck's, even JNPA had an outage for 1 or 2 days. So cyber resilience in terms of cyber security. Now I'll just quickly wind up on 2 things which are important and a mandate of DGS. I'm sorry I took so much of time. This is one slide where we are trying to put across all digital initiatives we are taking in maritime training and skilling. As I mentioned, to take India to a completely different level in maritime training. And this is zero tolerance for corruption. You have been hearing cases of youngsters being misled, so no more money to be paid, all processes digital, transparent, and zero tolerance for any corruption. Crewing, inclusion for gender, and also increasing the manpower from 12% to close to 20% plus, and seafarers welfare initiatives. And social security, I must speak about this. we're actually assisting Birmingham with doing a seafarers club. So if a seafarer, both Indian or international, comes on shore, he finds wonderful seafarer welfare facilities in the seafarers club, both inside the port and also near port vicinity. And as I said, zero tolerance in crewing and safety first. We are aspiring to be a nation with the best safety track record in our operations, because I firmly believe humans at the end, no matter what, are the paramount element in maritime industry. Thank you so much for the privilege. Jai Hind.